Before this video begins, by now you may have noticed that it is ungodly long, and I promise you everything in this video has a purpose, but in order to save my sanity, and hopefully yours too, the editing will be pretty minimal in a lot of areas other than just screenshots. So feel free to tune out of the video and listen in the background. I promise you you're not going to be missing much visually. You might remember at the end of the last video that little code that I left. It was just Morse code, right, with a strange word at the beginning. Well, essentially, it was a Caesar cipher translated into Morse code, and once you actually figured it out, you get the result, EbiGen on Twitter. Now, a lot of people actually figured this out, but didn't quite understand what I meant by it. But today, that all changes. Also, be sure to join my Discord if you enjoy this kind of content. Now, to get this out of the way before I really start getting into the content of the video, who is EbiGen? What is this account? Why am I bringing to you a random 15-year-old furry account on Twitter? Well, the thing is that what I just said was wrong. This account, if you haven't figured it out already, was made by me, and other friends obviously. The idea was thought up by all of us around October of 2021, and we figured, let's just see what happens, let's see how far we can get. And it wasn't originally a Sting account, but it ended up turning into one as we gradually went deeper and deeper into this. And our experiment worked. We had over 1,000 followers by the end of December. It was ridiculous how quickly we grew through various different methods of just following other people, as well as just making pretty mediocre art. Playing the character is so important to having an account like this, and like I said, it clearly worked. If you're wondering who made the art, it wasn't me, but out of the person who made its wishes, I'm not going to reveal who they are. But seriously, the amount of things that we discovered through the DMs of this account by talking to people is ridiculous. It shows a fundamental core problem within the furry community that a lot of you who disagreed with me on my furry community video a couple months ago will be seriously proven wrong by the things that we discovered in this video. And if you came from the EbiGen account where I'm going to post this video, hello, nice to meet you. My name is Jax. This video is in no way meant to be derogatory or hateful towards furries. I am not targeting you guys for a reason. Also, anyone in this featured will be censored as I'm not trying to create any witch hunts, which I know some people will want to do for no reason. Now, without further ado, I'm going to get into some of the children in the fandom that we actually interact with, the ones under 18. It is showing clear evidence of a mental health crisis among many young furries that just isn't being addressed, which leads to the internal rotting of this entire fandom. Many of these kids, of whom are as young as 14, often show signs of high promiscuity, over-sexualization, and overexposure to adult content from a very young age. And yes, you'll definitely see that as we get into these DMs. Keep in mind though, this account was also meant to be an underage furry. We posed ourselves as 15 years old. And of course, any minor, as you'll see, that tried to make advances towards us, we of course rejected. We're not trying to get into that shit. But that age will definitely come into play as we get into the section that talks about the various groomers who contacted us later in the video. One more quick thing actually before we go ahead is that I didn't write most of the DMs for this account. It was actually by someone else who is more familiar with the community who was on the project that wrote most of these DMs. Just know that about 99% of them were not from me. These accounts will be going in roughly, I guess, order of severity in terms of, mental health problems and other issues that are clearly being presented here. So this first account, we actually introduced ourselves first, saying, hiya, with this guy saying, how are you? I'm actually the same age as you. And then we just kind of talk a little bit, and he goes into how he's playing pinball for whatever reason, I don't know. He shows us his Sona with really disgustingly large paws, but I'm going to censor out most of it. But we actually found out later on, and you'll see this, that this kid was following zoophiles and was actually being called one himself. So then we asked him, are you doing anything weird? I don't know, just some people DM'd me saying you were following some weird people. I just want to know what happened because I don't know them. I don't know if it's real or not, or if they're just lying. I'm at work, but a lot of people follow me, okay? I can't control every single person, I'm busy. As long as weird people don't interact with me, I'm fine. I won't block them if they interact with me. I do love them, which is a weird thing to say. Do block them. And then we said, okay, just making sure. I don't know, I've never really talked to anyone weird like that, so I don't really know. Would you tell me if you were really and I wasn't judgmental? And he said, probably, but I don't really trust anyone currently because a lot of my friends have said stuff like that and have never followed through with it and not being judgmental. Which, is really weird in terms of the fact that we're alluding to zoophilia of all things, and he's saying these things. And we said, It's okay. I think I have a lot of problematic friends. At least that's what people say. I worry I'm also a problem. And of course he says you aren't, and then we just kind of continue talking. So then later on, we ask, what happened with all the stuff though? If you don't mind me asking, was it bad? And he said, what do you mean? And I said, the stuff with people calling you a zoo is not true, right? And he said, it's not true. My friend is one, yes, but that does not mean I am one. I would never be one, but my friend just wanted me to host the space while they were away doing something, so that's why they made me a co-host, and that's the only reason I was in it. I'm going to bed, good night. No clue what he's talking about with this, but it's very, very clear that this kid is in constant interaction with a zoophile, at least at the time of making this. And remember, this kid's 15 years old, and the fact that he's interacting with a zoophile likely means that he is one himself to some degree, but doesn't want to talk about it. I'm not fully going to jump to conclusions, even though I just did, but the fact that this kid is getting somewhat defensive and dismissive when we bring this up really shows that there's something weird going on here. And if that was the case, it would very likely be the result of grooming by this person that he's interacting with. It is very common for a child who is in a relationship with an adult online to pretend like they're really good friends and to do everything to justify the fact that they are just friends, even though most of them do a terrible job of doing this. This next account, though, is seemingly on the opposite side of the coin. This kid is 14 years old and discusses in depth the people who he interacts with in some cases, which both times show him interacting with adults over the age of 18 who draw NSFW art, sort of alluding to what I was talking about last video. It just kind of goes to show there are a lot of kids who will go out of their way to find these kinds of people. So we start out the conversation here where he actually contacted us first saying hello, and we said hi, and we exchanged conversations a little bit. He asked who made the art presented here, and of course the other character I will get into in the next section, and we said it was us. And as we scroll down, he's just talking about commissioning and whatever. And then we say, also, I have a question if you don't mind me asking. And he says, sure, you can ask me anything. And we say, well, I don't know if it's rude to ask, but how old are you if you don't mind us asking? And we did this to most people just to kind of get a grasp on their maturity and how old they were and, how they'd behave. So he said 7 days until he's 15. And he asked us, and we said, we're 15. And we said, and you're into the AD drone account. AD meaning after dark in this case, which usually involves not safe for work material. And he said, it's not an AD account with like a sweating face, this is my main. And we said, no, I mean Talon, not yours. Talon is an NSFW artist in the community. This kind of really goes to show though that a lot of kids who claim they don't watch pornography really do, and they actively seek it out. And while I'm not going to go out of my way to say that this is entirely problematic, it goes to show that there's a lot of secrets being held in this community that no one talks about, and everyone just kind of takes everything at face value, leading to just a culture of one-sided and two-faced people. He then sends pictures of him actually talking to this artist, saying hi, with him kind of exchanging a little bit, and then saying, can I be your drone? From asking around, it seems like a drone is basically a sexual hypnosis thing where you're basically beholden to someone else. It's some weird fetish shit. No idea really what it is, but I think that's what it revolves around. And then giving a little face with the artist, who again is over 18, saying, if you'd like, then sure, with a little squiggly sign, which if you're unaware kind of implies a sexual connotation to things. With the minor responding, well, I really want to be one, they are cool. And then he says, then you're welcome to be one, 3. Now, to be 100% honest, I am 90% sure the artist did not know this kid was underage, as the kid explicitly told us. Who knows if he was lying or not? But he did the same thing to another artist who is very popular, who actually knew he was 14. Now, after consulting with someone who actually knows this guy somehow, from what I've determined is that there are two stories here, and I am going to believe the artist on this one for the most part, where he says that he banned this kid from everything and is completely cut off contact once he found out the kid was 15. But if you read what the kid was saying, he was almost implying that they were chatting and that they were both engaging in weird conversations. Not going to jump to conclusions at all, but more so to apply this to the rest of the fandom, that there is so much going on behind the scenes that we just don't know about and we will never know about, even if it's harmless. And then, even though we are a real person, without seeing what we even look like and only talking to us for like 15 minutes on a few days, he says, hey, I can't hold this forever, you are very cute. Bro doesn't know anything about us, and although I am not one to play with emotions, this is really crazy. We made no advances towards this kid, and this is not the only example of a kid who is clearly in a mental health crisis, seeking relationship security in order to feel secure within themselves. Moving on though, we actually see an account that echoes to the previous video, which in this case is sort of an adult attracted minor. In his bio he says gay, new to NSFW, go easy on me, 18 with a winky face, and I'm sure you can figure out what that means. Anyways, getting into the chat, he says, to us first, quick question, well two, pronouns and sex, and we responded, I'm he, him, and a male, why do you ask? And he said, just cause I'm 15 as well and wanted to talk. Also a little drunk, and that's besides the point. I'm he, him, male, and gay as fuck. And said, how are you? And we didn't respond. He said, alrighty then. Afterwards, he apologizes for yesterday, saying that he got a bottle of Bailey's and got carried away. And that was after we asked, why were you drunk? And later on, he responded, do you not like people who drink or something? And we said, no, I was just curious. And then the conversation continues on. Later on, we say, sorry, I was off Twitter for the day. I wanted to ask you what it's like to drink. I've never drank before, so I wouldn't know, but I've always been scared of it. Remember, these are two 15-year-olds talking to each other. And he says, it's fine really, it's fun alone or with people. It's only bad if you're scared of it, but the worst you get a hangover, which is rare at 15. That's totally not true. And then we said, why would you want to drink at such a young age? And he said, are you in America? Because it's fairly normal in the UK, which actually I think is kind of true. So we say, oh yeah, I am. I guess I'm more scared because a lot of my family members drink and become mean or creepy when they do. He said, yeah, it's a pretty big difference in drinking culture. And then the conversation just gradually fizzles out. This, even if drinking culture in the UK is different, and I'm sure many viewers from the UK can attest to that, it is still not okay for a 15-year-old to be drinking bottles of vodka just because it feels nice and it makes you feel good. He actually talks about how drinking, quote, makes him horny, which is a really fucking weird thing to say in a conversation that's not even remotely sexual at all. After this, though, we just kind of move on to this really sad display of emotional despair coming from a 16-year-old boy in the furry fandom. It really is unfortunate how this came to be, but this guy tried so hard to be in a relationship with us and talked about his many home life problems and problems he's experienced himself in the fandom. So this started off after, I believe, a tweet or a picture he made in October where he said, you want pets? And we said, yes, wags tail, whatever, and a bunch of other weird roleplay stuff, of course, that never got inappropriate. And he later says, and I'm not 100% sure if this is roleplay or not, but I'm pretty sure that this is this kid's real name. He says his mom got his first name from a porn novel, and that she never, quote, really cared about him, and he sometimes hates his name because of her. And seeing this really breaks my heart, because this is a human being who is clearly, provided this is real, in a household that is destructive to his mental health. He then, literally on the same day roughly of talking to us, sends us pictures of himself. Then he gradually starts to make advances, saying, you're cute, sexy even, attractive if you're so inclined. And again, let me clarify, this kid is 16, and again, we never made advances towards him, and he did all of this himself, and we never actually entered a relationship with him, thank God. After we pushed back, just to see what he would do, he later says, I know you don't want to talk to me, but we can just be friends. I'm sorry I made you uncomfortable. With us responding, no, it's okay, don't worry. Yes, friends is alright. Sorry if I don't reply much. I'm not the best about replying, and my parents enjoy taking my phone away. And he just says, oh, okay. Then, 5 days later, out of fucking nowhere, he says, the first sexy son of a bitch I fell in love with. Here I am with 60 days left to ask you if you want to play a game sometime, or talk, or do something. And naturally, out of our own confusion, we said, what? And he said, I want to do something with you. And we said, no, what do you mean by first sexy son of a bitch? And he said, you're the first person I fell in love with. And we said, well, I'm flattered, but why? And he said, you're hot, kind, and everything you do is super cute, and I just had a crush on you. Even if you said you didn't want to, I still do, lol. Let me stress how ironically upsetting this is to see. This kid doesn't even know what we look like. He knows nothing about us. And that's nothing being held against him. But clearly he is actively seeking a relationship with someone he doesn't know anything about, which goes to kind of prove that a lot of minors in the furry community just kind of blindly wander into relationships without understanding how they should work. And regardless of the fact that relationships are different for everyone, clearly trying to e-date someone that you don't know anything about could be incredibly detrimental to your mental health, especially when relationships are the #1 thing you participate in to seek better mental health. And without going super in-depth to this kid's private details, he talks about the fact that his family just doesn't like him apparently, and that his parents want to kick him out. If you, the person in the DMs, are watching this video, just know that regardless if you're telling the truth or not, know that I hold no ill will towards you and that I understand where you are coming from with this. And I'm really just pointing out the kind of things that you're doing that just show a form of desperation, and know that it's not hatred or anything like that. And later on, something even more sad happens where he is actually pleading for help. After we ask, no, that is the question, would you want help or would you rather stay sad and lonely thinking you have nobody and nothing at all? And he said, yes, I want help. I've wanted help for years. Then who or what or how am I going to fix myself? What the fuck do I do? After this, the conversation kind of just settles down and eventually fizzles out, and the kid's account is now completely inactive. So that concludes it for this section, just kind of showing the various colors of the furry community, especially those who are under 18, and kind of just going through how there is so much that happens in this community behind the scenes that people just don't see. Of course, I'm making sure I'm not putting anything in that is extremely sensitive. I'm just showing some examples of the type of interactions that we've had with people on this account. As a sort of recap for that, the amount of kids who were just instantly clinging to us and the amount of kids who also clearly were craving attention from someone that they felt could give them emotional support goes to show how a lot of these kids in the furry fandom really are there for emotional support. However, many adults and kids older than them take advantage of this fact and just abuse it for their own gain. It's the internet. You're anonymous. You can do whatever the hell you want and no one can really do anything about it. All of the kids who are making romantic and, unfortunately, sexual advances towards us, which of course, again, we rejected, shows how they really have no education in mental health, and the people who should be giving them that are people who have been through the same things they have been through. But unfortunately, the furry fandom has been in this downward cycle where you have a bunch of people who grow up as teenagers with very little mental support, become adults, and then are unable to teach those younger than them how to deal with the problems that they themselves encountered when they were younger. That's why it seems grooming becomes more and more common in this community. There are no checks and balances. There is no main figure guiding the younger generation of furries on how to behave properly and how to prevent things like sexual deviancy that may result from not having proper mental health support within a community that they seek that very mental health support from. And when the younger generations continually have less and less mental health support as they grow older, it leads to a rotting from the inside out of the entire community. That I discussed in my original furry video that many people who were critics of that video seemed to dismiss altogether, claiming that their experiences had been great and that they had never had problems like this. Well, the thing that they fail to bring up is that everyone's experiences are different, and some people are lucky, some aren't. I know some people that joined the furry community when they were like 18, and they never experienced these things. I know people who have been in the furry community since they were 11 and have been groomed since they were 12. It's horrible the amount of things that have happened in this community, and for people just to assume their experiences are able to project onto all others is just really selfish in some ways. But I digress. I want to move on into the section that is even more disturbing, the section that shows how many pedophiles contacted us, regardless of us clearly stating our age on the account being 15 years old. The amount of people, even those who weren't over 18, that attempted to take advantage of us for our perceived naivety was really sickening. Our account was purely safe for work. We said some questionable things just to try and stoke some drama, but for the most part, everything on that account was completely safe for work, which goes to show that, unlike the last video which showed many kids who were 14 or 15 years old who were incredibly promiscuous and over-sexualizing themselves, this video goes to show how little this actually matters. It doesn't matter if you put yourself out there as a sexual object. Pedophiles will still come for you as a young furry and attempt to ruin your childhood by preying on you when you're too young to understand. As a sort of precursor to this whole thing, let's look into an account that, although it wasn't explicitly sexual, it had a lot of weird underlying connotation with its speech. This guy, whose bio is age 20, I am a male and bisexual and dominant. I am taken by my beautiful wife. No RP, no kids, please. So he introduced himself saying hi, and we said hi again, and he said, how are you? And after talking for a little bit, we just kind of interact, and even though he said he was never talking with kids, he said, both of us are awesome. And we said, yes. Did you want to talk, by the way? And he said, tell me about yourself. And we said, well, I'm a protogen and I enjoy drawing and I'm 15. That's about it. I'm kind of boring. And he said, same here, buddy, except I'm 20. So I know this one was short, but just kind of a precursor to what I'm going to show you later. It's just kind of odd overall. Up next is an example of an 18-year-old who had actually already been in contact with us earlier, but this time it was on his After Dark account, where his bio says, this is where I post and retweet stuff from me favorite artists. Though some is not safe for work, DMs open, 18, open to roleplay. So he opens to us first saying hi, and we said, hi, isn't this just your alt account? And he said, yes, my horny alt account. And we were like, okay, whatever. And then he engages in this weird roleplay where he says, noms your snoot. And we said, puts paws on your face to close mouth, only kissies, no eaties. And of course he ate that right up, saying, but I like nomming things. And then we get down into very quickly where this guy decided to start ERPing with us. Talking about how he's in school and giving us his email and his phone number. Talking about how he is in college and has night classes as well. Seriously, just generally weird things going on. But when I say you haven't seen anything yet, I mean it. Just hold on. This same kid, on his Twitter, after we made a suggestive post on purpose, responded to a tweet saying, what is it with 15-year-olds and constantly being horny in public? No damn wonder this people hate furries. And this guy said accurate, even though he was 18 and ERPing with us. And then, in one of the most bizarre circumstances I've ever seen, this guy decided to start ERPing with us on fucking Gmail. I have never heard of this happening in my life, but it happened here. Further still though, we have bigger fish to fry. This next subject immediately contacted us first saying, you equals small and adorable. And after egging him on some, he decided to say, I'll kiss your cheek. Mind you, this guy's bio is just a gay furry cat, 19, I'm INTP, whatever that means, giving his Telegram and saying his DMs are open, as well as having an 18+ account explicitly linked. And then not long after, he decides to say, I smooch you right in the lips. So scrolling down, he decides to start asking us if we're a boy or a girl, and we say boy, and he starts calling us baby boy, giving us a small kiss and saying, I go 9-9 now, and then we kind of egg him on in that way. So then he decides to say later that same day, licks your face, you taste like good boy, and we said, you munching me? And he said, yeah, cause you taste yummy. And we said, what does good boy taste like? And he said, you. So then, further egging him on, we said, noms your paw, you taste like a good boy too. Tastes like buttermilk frosting. And then he said, buttermilk frosting? You're licking white stuff off of me? Immediately heading into the erotic roleplay part of this. And then we said, perhaps. Depends on what color, it could be blue or something, just to see how much he was willing to egg us on. Unless you want it to be white, we said. And he said, lewd. Perhaps. Not lewder than holding hand, though. And then he said, I'll lewd you. After that, he decides to continue this little conversation on Telegram, which we'll now be going to just to see the rest of this conversation. So then, on Telegram, he decides to say immediately, I own you, stinky boy. And then he said, hi, sorry, I was asleep. And then it says, sits down and looks up at him, if you say so, master. And then, of course, he responded to that, knowing we were 15 years old, saying, I pick you up and place you in my lap, petting you, kinky. And then asking us how our day was today. And then asking later, how did I become your master? Sending a Telegram sticker that is clearly of a sensual nature. And then we continue to egg him on, saying that you said you own me, etc., etc. And he started calling us baby boy again. Like, this guy's 19 years old. Pretending like he hasn't been incredibly sexually provocative for the past many days, he decides to say, I can be lewd too, but I don't want to do it much because I want to get to know you first. So then he decides to engage in disgusting RP, and again, I cannot stress, I did not write this. I would be in severe mental anguish had I had to write this, so I thank my friend who decided to go through with this. Seriously, it helped the rest of us stay sane. He then sends a picture of his persona to us, which is an incredibly unique one, so it's easily identifiable, and one standing in front of Publix, which is the best grocery store in the world, by the way, where apparently he says he works, at least at the time of this going down. Later on in this chat, after we had posted something suggestive that people were mad at us for, obviously on purpose, we said, "I'm not gonna, just a bit annoying, but I'm free. He was trying to control me, but he can't now." And then he decided to say, "Can I control you?" Later on, he sent us nude art of his persona. Where have I seen that before? Oh yeah, this guy's also a Twitch streamer, by the way. Where he then called us, quote, submissive and breedable, and saying, "Guess I'll pin you down and ride you then." He then sends us really nasty pictures of himself in femboy clothes, and, you know, of course, they look terrible. And then sends us a full-ass porn video out of nowhere after he was asking us what we were watching. That's about as extreme as it got for this guy, but if you think that's as bad as it gets, you are sorely mistaken. Up next is a guy that was a little bit more infatuated with us, as he decided to make his own art for us that, you know, he spent time on for free. Anyways, most of the stuff from this guy's account is deleted, but I do have a bunch of screenshots from it, where he says, "Pets you more," and of course we kind of egg him on and saying, "Are you busy with school?" And very, very quickly he starts talking about how he wants to snuggle us and how he's going to give us a gift, saying that's a work in progress. So then we pretend to freak out, saying, "Oh my god, I think that's the first time I've gotten art besides my main art, oh my god." He then says, "At random, I see you, quote, liking being a femboy," which is kind of an odd comment, I guess. And then we said, "Yeah, maybe, it's in my blood." And then he says, "Snuggles, then you're a fluffy femboy." And we basically just egged him on again. And then in a not so bizarre twist of irony, we say, "Also, I have a question for you. I don't know if it's okay to ask or not." Then he says, "As long as it's safe for work." And we said, "I was wondering how old you were. I have my age in my bio, but not everyone has theirs on here. I don't know if it's bad or not to ask. Sorry if that's rude." And he says, "I'm 18 plus. And big shocker, that's gonna come into play later. He then mentions the fact that he's not the first one to draw us, which is honestly crazy, and then later sends the art of the person who drew us first. And then later on, he sends us his art piece he made for us, which, by the way, on almost every post he made up until he suspended his own account, he posted this artwork under everything we posted. Also, here's some art someone drew of us after we made a very controversial statement on our Twitter. Here are some examples of more art that he constantly spammed in our comments. Like, seriously, there was so much repetition with these exact 4 artworks, it was ridiculous. Up next, we have a very interesting character. This guy decided to constantly roleplay as himself, introducing himself, saying, "MilitaryWerewolf, good afternoon, little protogen cutie floof." Mind you, this guy is definitely over 18, saying, "How's your day is? Good afternoon, little protogen cutie floof." After we kept responding, our friend here decided to continue roleplaying as himself, saying progressively more provocative things. Pretty similar to the last guy, but he immediately talks about his fetish for vor and maws, as I discussed a while back, and very clearly he starts sending us pretty inappropriate images of vor. I don't know where along his line of thinking he decided this was a great idea, but he just decided to do it anyways. Up next, though, we reach another level of emotional manipulation. Rather than it just being sexual manipulation, wherein people were just abusing the fact that we were apparently a hormonal 15-year-old, this next guy is doing actual textbook grooming, using emotional manipulation to get us to basically be under his command. Skipping the same carbon copy introduction that we've seen 100 times now, he starts talking about this, quote, free cuddles coupon, I guess. And kind of playing into that, we said he could turn it in right here, opens ticket slot and chest, whatever. And then immediately after, he sends the same picture, but added, and lewd under free cuddles. And then we, again leading him on, said, same place, Pat's chest. And he said, so what does a cutie such as yourself like best? And mind you, this guy is 19 years old. Saying, it's okay to talk to me. I see people have been mean to you, but I'm not like them, I promise. And we said, it's a bit hard and I feel like nobody is listening to me on there. Referring, I believe, to the Twitter thread that we had that was controversial. And then he said, well, hey, I remember what it's like, and I remember being frustrated as hell about people who didn't know my life trying to tell me what was best for me and trying to make decisions for me. So fuck them. People are people, and if your body tells you to use it, we should listen. I respect your right to make decisions for yourself. Not 100% sure what that means, but I assume it has a sexual connotation. And then later on, when we don't respond, he said, so whatever happens here stays here. You're totally, completely safe here. And then again, later on, he says, still interested in talking. I can go if you want. and then saying, I'll go. A clear example of emotional manipulation. So then we responded, I'm sorry, I got off Twitter for the day and tried to stay off of it. I'm still getting a little bit of hate, but it's slowing down, so I think I'll feel better in a couple days. I just don't want anyone to be mad at me. Then he said, okay, well, I promise, I'm not one of them, and I won't tell anyone. You're safe here. And then we said, it's okay, I don't expect you to, I just wish people could understand how much they hurt me. At this point, I feel like I probably deserve all of it. So then, following a textbook groomer routine, he decides to give us some, quote, sex education, describing the first time he did it at a sleepover, when we didn't even ask. And got into just really gross detail, again, a 19-year-old talking to a 15-year-old. And then after this very generous sex education, he decides to start ERPing with us. Big fucking shocker there. After that, the conversation gradually fizzled out, but the unfortunate thing here is that if you go to this guy's profile, he is following a lot of children. Thankfully, he's not active anymore, but I guarantee you he just moved on to another account. But looking through his followers list, you see kids as young as 14 years old who he likely made advances towards. Only 2 more left to go, I promise, but this next guy is like the last guy, but instead of just being straight up sexual, this guy involves his disgusting fetishes with it too. And this chat was actually exclusively on Telegram, where he came to us first saying, howdy there, and we said hi. And he said, how goes it, stinky proto? Very clearly alluding already to his weird sexual desires, I guarantee you've already figured out. And we said, we're good. And he said, I'm alright, just taking it easy after a week of getting my ass kicked. 300 plus windows, the warehouse got packed, and I got some squats in at least. Don't worry, I wasn't literally getting my ass kicked. I deal the ass punishment here, whatever the hell that means. And we said, oh god, sounds rough. At least it is busy though. And he said, I mean, I've gotten a hell of a lot stronger. Best shape I've been in my entire life. It's exhausting, but I'm happy about that. I decided to start working out on the fly about 2 years ago, mainly because I was depressed as shit. May as well train so I can beat it up. Roleplay is one of my potentially naughtier methods of stress reduction. I definitely roleplay more than I work out. But, I mean, it works. This guy is already spilling everything he does in his personal life, so why not just add on to it with the fact that he's a gross roleplayer? So after telling him we basically had no limits just to see how far he would go, which is probably a mistake in hindsight, he said, depending upon how you do, maybe you could earn a bit of money from serving me. You got PayPal, Cash App, or anything? If not, I could always get you some gift card codes and stuff. I don't have anything, no. I think card codes would work, but what would you be paying me for? To be my pet, basically? How much you make depends on how active you are, what you're willing to do, and so on. And just for those of you who might be listening, this is the only thing I'm going to read out of this entire conversation that is of this manner. One thing that's mandatory, your butt has to stink. It's gotta stink like whatever proto-butt is supposed to. If you're okay with your butt being a bit dirty, that's even better. This guy knows we're 15 years old and he is over the age of 18, let alone the fact that if we were both over 18, this would be just completely disgusting, obviously. Later on, he said, could you cry or whine when we have proper sex? And then saying, I wrap my arms around your hips with a soft huff before looking into that visor of yours. Later saying, you are to call me sir, master, or daddy, address me by my name, and I'll do to you what my own alphas do to me. Some more disgusting posts by him, yada yada yada. You've seen it before, I'm not reading it. He also basically starts engaging in slave play, where he's acting like we're basically a slave rather than his pet as he wanted us to be earlier, which is even worse. He also reveals that he's a somnophiliac, saying, hey pet, would you be okay with me running you when you're powered off at some point? I'm gonna end that guy's chat logs off there because the video is already getting long enough. But just know that on the day I'm recording this, May 12th, 2022, he is still trying to contact us. As of 10:30 a.m. this morning, he said, Ebby? Expecting us to respond even though we haven't responded since January. Putting everything aside from the past 30 minutes, this next predator is unlike anything I have ever heard before. The story behind this man could be a documentary in and of itself. The amount of things that happened between Ebigen and this guy are ridiculous. And I promise you, sit tight for the whole thing, it will be worth it. This guy, because of his actions, I'm gonna list by name, because all he does is just make new accounts with the same exact name. His name is RedAlphaWolf, or FireAlphaWolf if you choose to call him. And our conversation started basically on day 1 of this account, where he said, hello. And thus begins one of the most unhinged stories I've ever been a part of. We start responding, saying hi, and he says, how are you? I'm doing good, what about you? Did you need anything from me? And he said, tired and pissed off, and no, it says you're friendly and wants pets. And as we keep going, He ends up talking about how, yes, we are demons, but no demons are mad. We live our lives the same, but we do have a short temper. I'm one of the lucky ones that takes time to get me angry, and once I am pissed for like 2 days. Oh, dang. Well, maybe we can do something to help with the anger? To be honest, there's nothing that can help you with my anger. So then he quote-unquote embarrasses us, so he says, sitting there, think. Why were you hiding your control panels? And then we said, screen flushes over. I don't know, my system made me do it. And he said, you have a glitch, don't you? And we said, maybe, what do you think? Could you fix it? And he says, I can't fix it, but what was your payment fees to me? Be to me. I can fix anything, just get this glitch out of me. And then he said, grab my computer and plug it into you. Look like you have about 6 different viruses in 3 bags. Bugs. Doomsday, hack pride, life of crime, horniness. What? What have you been putting in your body? And then we said, what? I just intake what I see around me, hee hee. It's in my programming. Probably airdrop from other protos, but that last one might be natural. Then he said, there's also depression and self-doubt and self-awareness. So we said, oh well, yeah, those are in there too. Oops, face shifts to a frown. I would prefer them removed, but I've just been living with them. Deletes them. There. How do you feel now? Then we said, screen glitches out for a second and then reboots. Is quiet from the self-awareness deletion, but is smiling and wagging tail happily. Then he says, oh crap, downloads English onto your program. Try to find self-awareness. Where have it gone? I'm not even gonna read any more of this. It just keeps going, dude. I don't know what was running through this man's mind. And even more into this, later on we said, what do you want to do to me right now? And he said, I can't command you right now. And we said, why is that? And he said, contract and a mark. And then we said, how do we do that? And then he responded, well, because you're an ematronic and he requires blood to activate the contract, I had to turn you into a human for you to do that? What? I don't know where he's coming up with this stuff. I'm reading a lot of this for the first time and my mind is kind of blown at this point. So then we didn't talk for a while, where he just out of nowhere says, read on my profile, I see that you unfollowed, never mind, didn't see it the first time. Hello? Hello, cutie. Why haven't you been texting me, sad face? And then we finally respond. And the first thing he says back to us after we said hi was, growl lightly. So then he starts talking about kissing us, a lot. And then immediately down below, we said, is there anything else I can do for you, sir? And he said, there is, but I can't and won't do to you. And we said, what would that be? Obviously seeing what's coming. And he said, you are 15 and I'm NSFW. So we said, oh, I see what you mean now. Yeah, that might be a bit bad. That's okay though, I can always provide the safest cuddles. And then he said, yeah. And we said, it's up to you though, but it's probably best I wait. And he said, I'm confused. And we said, why is that? And he responded, which one are you talking about, the NSFW or the cuddling? Because I prefer to have the cuddling right now. And we said, both. But I prefer the cuddling too. I don't know, I haven't done much NSFW, and I don't know if it would be okay for me yet, so I probably best not wait. And we said, this is what I'll do now, pretending to cuddle him. And he said, NSFW just saying you shouldn't right now, okay? And I'm saying that from experience. I've been doing NSFW since I was 8, and I was 10 years ago, and that's when I made my first OC, and I actually still have my first OC that is red. Clearly an example of someone that has been groomed and abused as a child who grew up to do the exact same thing, as you'll see later. So then he says he has a few questions for us, asking 1, who is our owner? 2, why are our messages spaced out like take you a long time? And 3, can you comment on a post I have, this one? If you thought this guy's poor English skills was a result of him, potentially being from another country, that isn't the case. I'm not going to reveal his exact location, but, as we'll get into later, he was doxxed and he lives in the United States and has for quite a long time, only being quote-unquote 18 years old, which he might be like 24, no one really knows. So then we said, I've been trying to be on more lately, but it's difficult when I have stuff I gotta do. I think I'm a pretty good listener. And then he responded, no, I mean different type of stuff. And we said, oh, well, I can still do other stuff. Nothing naughty if you don't want me to. I can try to be the best pet I can be. And he said, if you sign the contract, you will be mine forever. Both you and your OC, and you can never get another master. You'll be mine forever. Are you willing to take that? Oh, and also, I would like to know where you've been and what's happening. Mind you, this guy was literally trying to, quote-unquote, educate us on the fact that it's dangerous to participate in SFW or sexually explicit activities under the age of 18. So then he starts role-playing us signing a blood contract and us getting a collar. Like, he just sends 2 pictures of 2 collars that apparently we're supposed to wear. Then he posted some weird shit on his profile, basically pertaining to us, even though everyone knew he was over the age of 18. And then he said, do you know this is only for 24 hours, right? And what do you mean my new collar? I'm only wearing this 24-hour color, and if you put a bell on it, will get evaporated also when I burn it off. I have no idea what to say about this. Like, I legit have never seen this before, and this is blowing my mind. So then he attempts to convince us to join a community with other people who are not safe for work. Once again, this is something that a lot of groomers do just to kind of open kids up to the idea of being hypersexual. And, you know, of course he agreed, and he said it was a group chat. Not sure where that group chat went, pretty sure it's gone. He then asked us to draw a picture of our personas in maid outfits, hugging each other, and of course we obliged because it was some lazy-ass art. A little bit after talking about another minor he groomed into being his quote-unquote pet, he said, do you want to see something sexy? And we said, sure. And he said, it is NSFW, is that fine? And we said, if you want to send me it, sure, I don't mind. And, you know, it's some, like, femboy shit. By this point, people began to realize that our relationship with RedAlphaWolf was disgusting, as people started to pick up on RedAlphaWolf being a little bit retarded and actively announcing that we were together by constantly commenting on our posts. And to all the people that came to us and trying to warn us, appreciate you a lot. Seriously, it goes to show that you have a little bit more wherewithal than much of the furry community, because a lot of them are unaware to detect certain things like this. Mind you, everything you're about to hear happened during the same day. So we said, I have a question for you, Master. And he said, opens ears. And we said, what's your girlfriend like? Or wife? I'm curious. And he said, mean and overprotective. I can tell her to tell you. And we said, sure. Is that a bad thing for you? And then he comes back and says, hi, it's me, Red's wife. Now, you might be thinking, there's no way in hell this guy's a wife. This is totally bullshit. Well, you would not believe the type of videos we received from both of them, showing them with a child and together with each other. I have no clue what was going on. I don't know if these are real people. I don't know if this is actually him. And I'm not going to show the videos, but I was sent some pretty convincing things that shows that he might actually have a wife. So then, if she actually exists, she went on to say, I'm overprotective and clingy in a good way, and sometimes rude to people who disrespect me or my hubby. I'm good, how about you? But I'm a nice person as long as they're nice to me too. And we said, that's good. I don't think it'd be bad to be overprotective. Are you also a fur? And she said, sadly, no. And then we said, do you mind me RPing with your husband? And she said, yeah, as long as you are not a minor. I not let my hubby sex RPing with minors because we have had enough with any drama for past days. And we said, oh, well, I'm 15, but I'm not doing sex RP with me, don't worry. You can go through it, but I haven't done anything lewd. I'm a good boy. And then she said, you can safe for work with my hubby. And we said, yeah, that's what I do. Would you like to see my character? Also, what do you mean by drama? That stuff from the tweet threads? And then she said, yeah. And we said, I saw it. I don't like it. It just seems like a bunch of people being dramatic and spreading lies. And then, you know, he switches back to his other personality. And she said, yes, lol, she is my IRL GF. Wife. I really have no words. I'm sure you guys are just as confused as I am. This is one of the weirdest things I've ever seen. And then it immediately switches again, and we ask, is he nice IRL too? And she said, yes. And we said, what's it like? I've never lived with anyone else other than my parents. And she said, he's a good dad to our IRL son. I mean, he changed a lot than before. I also start to accept how he is like furry and like RPing with people online. And then we said, what is your son like? And she said, he is a baby. And we said, it's good that he changed. I don't know how he was before, but he's always been nice to me, so he's good to me. And then she said, but my son like a Christmas light. And we said, is it hard to have kids? I've never had a sibling either. And she said, not at all to me. One kid is easy, to be honest. And we said, what's it like? Is it like caring for a pet kind of except like a human? And then Red came in, the guy, and said, yes and no, whatever that's supposed to mean. And then just a little bit later on, the wife comes back and says, this Red's wife, don't text her. And we said, what happened? And then she said, never mind. And then later said, Red wants to bring a 14 years old back and talk her about tweet treads again. Red asking his friend to talk her for him. And we said, tweet treads? And she said, I told my hubby if he bring 14 years old girl back again, then he can leave me. Being the person she was talking about, I guess. And we said, what happened with her? Did she do something wrong? And then she said, never mind, I gotta go. He yelling at me right now, so I gotta go. He then later that morning announces to us that his wife now has a Twitter account. For no reason. I don't know why she decided to make one that day, but she did, I guess. And then after roleplay kissing us, he says, I hope you don't backstab me. And we said, what do you mean? He said, some of my pets and people who are close to me sometimes backstab me, so I hope you don't. Sorry, buddy, you're in for a bit of a shocker. He then sends us a screenshot where he's logged into his quote-unquote wife's account, showing people trying to expose him. A few days later, he says, "Oh, how do you like my edits?" Sending some random video of some edit he made, and we said, "They're so pretty." And he said, "I'm good at edits than drawing. This is my drawing." I don't know what is going on in this picture or what he drew it on. And he said, "Gross, I hate it." And we said, "What is that supposed to be?" And he said, "A demon sucking a dick in a portal with glasses on." Later on in the conversation, he reveals to us that he is indeed a security guard for some company, saying, "Oh, you haven't seen how I look like, haven't you? I started working when I was 16 and start volunteering around places when I was like 14 or 15. I was also an Explorer program for my police department, so I know some laws, and I also had a Ministry of Justice court class, so I know even more laws." You can tell this guy is very educated in the criminal justice system. Then he said, "I saw the picture you posted, but that's it. I wish I had a job. It gets boring sometimes." And then he decided to send a picture of himself to us. And I'm sure just by looking at it, you can tell why exactly I felt like this guy wasn't 18 years old. Responding to a post we made, wherein the caption was, "What did you say to make me blush so hard?" he just decides to, out of the blue, say, "Showing you my dick, lol." And we said, "Yeah, hee hee." So then he asked us to make a Second Life account, where my friend decided to trick out our new account a little bit and make one of the most horrific things I think I've ever seen. Then he decided to add us on Telegram, where we made an account for him, and we ended up not responding to him on Twitter for a while. And he said, "Hello, nice. Why no talk? You were here at Ebigen. Fuck you and fuck off. I block you now." And then we said, "Okay." And he said, "If it makes you happy, I'm going to jail or about to. Ebby?" And we said, "Yeah." And he said, "You happy I'm going to jail?" And he said, "Ebby, speak." And we said, "Are you really?" And he said, "Mostly." And we said, "Mostly? Why are you telling me this?" And he said, "Yeah, X is taking me to court for it, and because I know this is what you want. Also in your profile picture, why you still have the RP collar." And we said, "Why do you think you're important enough to talk to me? You want to crawl back to your master?" Because we were just fucking with him at this point. And he said, "Nope, you're not my master, plus I stopped RPing, also letting you know because I know you hate me." And then from there, he just kind of stopped talking, and he ended up blocking us. So, lots of weird things going on. He basically said he would go to jail for 30 years, which probably wouldn't actually happen, but you know, very unhinged. But this is before we actually got into what happened on Telegram. So real quick, I'll show you guys what happened there. So eventually something happened in his quote-unquote marriage where he said, "No, that is still fucked up. I trusted you and you backstabbed me also. Thanks for that." And we said, "That's what you want too, right? You want her to leave you alone and let you do whatever, right?" And he said, "You don't know what I want." And we said, "Don't worry, dude. I have most of your personal IRL details and a bunch of dick pics." And speaking of those dick pics, we have a bunch of pictures that he sent to us at one point of both him and his wife's nude pictures alongside disgusting videos of them having sex. So that just kind of throws everything into the air. Is his wife real or not? Because these are pictures of a real woman alongside a video that we saw of him and his wife at some Halloween thing carrying his child around. Not to mention the fact that after all this went down, his wife made an account that just straight up doxed his real location and what he does for a living. It was insane, and I had never seen anything like it. And also alongside the fact that his wife was contacting us on Twitter and talking to us on her own account. On his wife's Twitter account, she had basically told us that they had been together for 4 years and had a baby son, and he bought her a ring, apparently, and said some mean things about her when he was angry, but he still loves her. Later on, she said, "He says I control his life, but I'm not. I try to stop him from trouble. He can't see that. He nearly tried to stab someone, but I and my friends stopped him. He was really scared." Later on, she lost her shit at us for apparently trying to fuck her family up because we had seen her nudes, even though we weren't the ones that found them. Red sent them to us. And then later on, we were friends again and talked about how she broke up with him and now she was alone because apparently he had another girlfriend. Never mind, scratch that. Apparently they got back together later on, and she is still trying to contact us almost to this date, with her last correspondence being on April 27th. Remember when Red was saying he was going to go to jail? Well, I don't think that really happened because he came back on an alt saying, "Hello, Valentine Ebby." Then he responded in March saying hi, and then in April he said, "Long time." And since then, he has not spoken to us since. And that concludes the Ballad of RedAlphaWolf. I know that was incredibly long, and there's still a little bit more to talk about in this video, so if you made it this far, God bless you. I'm surprised you haven't fucking left by now. But seriously, I appreciate you, and the rest of the video won't be nearly this long. Seriously, the amount of people that had contacted us who were over the age of 18, and obviously didn't list their age in their bios on purpose, is insane to me. We listed ourselves explicitly as 15 years old, yet we played the character of a naive child, which was incredibly enticing to pedophiles who have things like corruption fetishes and generally just want to have sexual relations with a child. Speaking of over-sexualization though, let me tangent off of this to talk about femboy culture, which is actively ruining this young generation of furries. Rather than teaching them to stand up against sexualization and objectification, they choose to sexualize and objectify themselves, accidentally oftentimes, for people over the age of 18. I know that there will be people up in this video saying things like, oh my god, thigh highs and whatnot are not sexualized. The thing is that originally, they weren't. Of course they weren't. But as things go with the furry community as of recent, the more and more they're adopted, the more and more they're sexualized. When I brought up the idea of, quote, striving to be a bottom on my last video, some people commented on how that was inherently homophobic or whatever. Well, it's not. I don't really give a shit if you care about those kinds of things. But the problem is when some 14-year-old kid buys thigh highs and arm warmers to try and act, quote-unquote, bottom-like, it is actively demonstrating to other children that this is acceptable behavior that can be replicated and is easy to grab attention with. This leads me, though, into the idea that a system with no checks and balances can quickly collapse and be abused by bad actors. There's a reason why all the successful governments in the world, organizations, and communities all have checks and balances to ensure that bad actors are rooted out and don't have any harmful power. The furry community has none of these. A community whose main doctrines revolve around the idea of love and acceptance rarely have the checks and balances to deal with people who actively use those doctrines to their own malicious advantage. Hence, the MAP movement, the AAM movement, and the various levels of people in the furry community who are zoophiles or baby furs or whatever kind of other crazy paraphilias that there are out there. And without rambling on too long, I'd like to bring up, just to the people who were critiquing my first furry video, all of the evidence presented in this video. There's a lot that just kind of disproves this idea that the furry fandom is a utopia as long as you're careful, because it really isn't. It's a minefield. If you know where the mines are, sure, you can get through it just fine. But when you're 14 years old and going through puberty and very hormonal, that minefield is above a nuclear bunker. And all of the mines are invisible. Now, if you came from Ebigen's Twitter, or you're a furry who watches my channel, please, I encourage you to share this video. Get people's thoughts on it. I want to generate attention around this video, because just like my first furry video, it's not meant to be a hate letter. I legit want to see what people have to say about this, and because many of my friends are in the furry fandom, I'd love to see actual change happen, because I know many people have been negatively affected by the fandom's many faults. Seriously though, if you enjoyed this video, please subscribe and comment down below your thoughts, even if you're not a furry. It means a lot to me and the people watching, and it helps the video get seen by more people. This might be my last serious video for a while. I have a really busy summer coming up, and I have a little bit of a gap in between, so I'll try to work something in there. But in between then and now, there might not be a lot happening on this channel. And after the summer's over, my schedule gets even busier, so just if I'm not uploading a lot, that's where I am. I'm still here, and I'm still on YouTube, I promise. Anyways, though, that's going to do it for the Twitter files. I appreciate you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.